all of you that would like to stay. Welcome to Kind Mind. My name is Kelly Mabel, for those of you who don't know me. And I've been running these amazing speakers for the last 8 months, and we're now into our fall series. And there's going to be a bit of adjusting for people coming in, so I may be not as present in the first 10 minutes as I let people in the room. But I'd like to welcome you all and thank you all for coming and say that I'm blessed to have Anna Debenham from the Inside Alliance. And I had a really, I don't know, it was just a feeling. And I have lots of feelings about different things. But one of the things I shared with Anna before we got to the room was that prisons have always had something around for energy for me. And I happen to know a man who builds prisons, and he's a husband of a client of mine, and he often spoke about these prisons. And one day he said he might bring me down to actually see the prisons and be inside. And it was just almost like a dream for that to be able to be happening. And I think it's because there is some interesting experiences. He's actually building them in South Africa. And so there's just been so many movies and artificial conversations and things that aren't really true around prisons. And so when Anna when I actually saw Anna and saw the work that she was doing, I was so aligned that the three principles that actually made it this far. And some of you may not even know that they're to the degree in which the principals are working on the behalf of the inmates and for obviously people that are coming into the prisons and for people that are leaving. And so I was like, yeah, I got to have this woman in, and I got to speak with her, and I want to share what she's doing. And so Anna, I welcome you to the room. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, it's nice to see everybody.
Yeah, more and more people coming in. So the wee bit of conversation that we had prior to, Anna and I have never met, yet I do really honor and respect the work that she's been doing. And some of you have may have heard of the Beyond Recovery, which is working in the UK doing similar things. And Anna has a different story over here in the West Coast. There's a way that the U.S. does things, and some of the interesting ways she became the person that she is as far as the Inside Alliance goes, and the human that began that procedure, that journey. So I would love it if we could begin, because I'm not familiar with everybody knowing who you are. And I didn't until I did. So maybe we could begin with just a bit of an unfolding of who you are, where you are, what provided this wisdom and insight for you to be doing the work that you do, and then we can see what happens after that.
Yeah,
How's that?
sounds good. Thanks, Kelly. It's
Yeah,
good to meet you, and it's nice to see. I know I recognize some faces on here, so it's nice to see
yeah.
you. Well, my name's Anna, and I'm in Portland, in Oregon, so not far from Vancouver. I love Vancouver. Um, and I founded the Insight Alliance about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago now. And previous to that, I've been living in England, and came across the principles kind of randomly, as people do. And I went to One Thought when Mara and Aaron were running it in London. So it's about I think 2012, 2013. And it just, it's like a familiar story, but it just felt true for me, what I was hearing and what resonated, and it was something that I wanted to explore more, not just for myself, but for, I don't know. Well, I suppose it was for myself initially. But I was also working with people as a coach in London, and I thought this would be really helpful. And so I went to One Thought, and then I met Jacqueline, who was also in our cohort at the time, and she was just going to start a research project in Onley, the prison that she started, and she needed a volunteer to do it with her. And so my hand shot up because it sounded really interesting to me. It hadn't been a dream to work in prison. I never thought about it. I hadn't, like Kelly, I wasn't intrigued by prisons. I just hadn't really thought of it. I was just glad that I wasn't in one, in a different capacity. But but it just sounded really interesting to me, you know, and I just really, really wanted to do it. So I was just telling Kelly that I kind of like hounded Jacqueline for, you know, on the tube when I saw her on the way to one, like, I really want to do this. I really want to do this. Can I please volunteer? Can I please do this with you? And so I ended up working there for about a year, and kind of got, you know, started running groups and kind of got thrown in the deep end and didn't really know what I was doing, and kind of made it up as I went, and, you know, trial and error, and, you know, you come out going, oh, I fucked that up, and that's that, you know, and then you just kind of figure it out, and then you just sort of, I learned how, you know, the best way to show up was come with nothing, and then see where it goes, you know, and so then I ended up moving back to Portland. I'd lived here before for about 10 years and working, doing completely different stuff, but came back to Portland and really wanted to continue this work, but really didn't know how that was going to happen. Like I had no clue about how to get into prison in America. I didn't know, you know, what was entailed, and even, you know, I just didn't know any of it. I just knew that it was a direction that I wanted to go in. But I had a lot of thinking about it, and I kind of got in my own way still about, you know, what I was capable of and what I could do. And but then you know, I don't know, I kind of sometimes feel like I know I've seen some of you, and so I you know, I hope it's, you know, it's like that boring, that's the story of how you came to do what you were doing. But you know, I feel like that there was a point where I had an insight on probably one of the most challenging days of thinking, oh, fuck this, I can't do it. I just don't know how to do this. Like, I literally don't know how to start running an organization that's going to go into prison. Like, it just didn't feel like an option for me at all. And then I was just sort of, you know, went for a walk. And then I had a really simple insight that she says, you know, you can just go and work in a coffee shop. Like, you don't have to do this. Like, you know, there's nothing in the world that you can do that's going to make you any more whole than you already are. And I suddenly I just had this like, oh my god, I can do. We got a store here called New Seasons, which is like a grocery store, and I was like, oh my god, I could just go and work in New Seasons. I don't have to do anything. Like, it was like the biggest weight got lifted off my shoulders, because I had this huge kind of thing of like, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, and it was like my well-being depended on it, like seriously depended on it, like me getting this thing off the ground, like it was going to be really important to who I am as a human, and like the value I bring to the world, and all that stuff, and my self-worth around, you know, kind of doing this thing that I was doing in England that was really, really powerful, and then I was just going to not do anything. And so, but there was something that really hit me around, something I need to do. But at that moment, of course, was when I kind of, you know, dropped all that unnecessary bullshit, and my internal heckler kind of quietened down. And then I just had an idea about how to get into prison. It was the most simplest thing in the world, because it was like, why don't you just put a message out on Facebook to see if anyone knows anyone that's ever been in prison? I mean, it's such a basic idea, but I hadn't even thought of it. There wasn't even enough space in my head to even come up with that. So and then it kind of went from there, and I met someone, and then kind of got an opportunity to talk to someone who actually, it was actually the chaplain. There was actually the chaplain in the first prison that we went in, and it was really interesting to speak. He's Canadian, lovely guy, absolute love of a guy, just so much respect for him. And he said, you know, in the 15 years that he's worked in prison, he said, what I noticed is when people change, when people really change, it's because they connect with something deeper inside themselves. And what you're doing is this, you're connecting with that same place, but you're just not calling it God. You're not calling it something that's going to then like have people, you know, kind of back away from it, you know. And so he said, you know, I'd love you to do this program, because it's going to help more people, because you're bringing to light our spiritual nature, but you're not doing it in a way that's spiritual or religious or whatever he called it. So that we first came in through them. So that was our first group, and then it kind of was all went from there, really. I mean, you know, we started doing a research project in the women's prison. We were brought in the women's side, we're not under religious services. And the only reason I'm making this a point is because we've had a nightmare with prisons where they're trying to change how we come in, and I've been having a anyway, that's another whole story. But but yeah, so we're under life skills in the women's prison. So it's all random. It's how people see it. In the women's prison, they did not see it as something that was spiritual at all. And I tried really hard because I thought that was my best avenue because it was the easiest way to get in. But then that, yeah. So then I just started seeing, amazing change in the humans that we were working with, and then other people were like, why aren't we working with youth? Like, why don't you do this with youth? If I knew this when I was younger, I wouldn't be here. Like, because you realize, other than people obviously that are in prison that shouldn't be in this system that's very, very inequitable and very unfair, the people that are actually in prison because they did something are generally there because they reacted to a feeling, or they were trying to find some relief from an uncomfortable feeling. So when people understand their feelings, they realize, well, it's not, you don't need to. It's like all the things that they get into trouble for was because they reacted to things they didn't need to react to. So then we ended up then working with the youth, and so we're in a youth prison, and we've been doing that all the way through COVID because we could do it on Zoom. So we have numerous different programs running with the youth, and we're doing amazing. So and then we're working now with people on the outside because parole officers recognize that people who come through our program are really doing better than a lot of people who are, go through the regular programs, which tell you you're broken and something wrong with you and you're bad and all those things, which we don't say at all. And so you have a very different kind of outcome, as you all know, doing this work. We're working with the Federal Reentry Court and the parole officers and probation. And so we're doing programs on the outside and also with the Northwest Reentry Centre and yeah, so that's kind of, and then we also started Project 180, which actually gets at realizing that people, understanding their own minds is really, really helpful, but also so is, finding a job and finding housing and, getting resources and in having an emergency fund, because sometimes it's like, you need to get a car. You can't get a job until you have a car, but you can't get a car until you have a DMV, but you can't get the DMV until you have, your birth certificate. And you lost your birth certificate or you never had it. So you just need $30 to get your birth certificate, but you haven't got $30 because you can't get a job because you can't get a job until you have ID. I mean, it's that ridiculous. And so we're just like, we'll give you $30. Like, that's just ridiculous. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. You realize that the basic hindrance, which has nothing to do with the principles, but it makes all the difference in the world, where you're paying for someone to get their birth certificate or get the DM, or even go to a class that they need to go to before they can see their kids, but the class costs $400. And you're just like, for the love of God, like, that's just absurd. Like, $400 right out the gate, you've got to pay to be able to do a program before you can see your kids. We'll give you $400, So we have an emergency fund for things like that, so we can move things quicker, so people can actually get back on their feet. So we've kind of expanded what we do from going insight to well-being to going, okay, but we need to include other things, because there's a lot of other things, even though, life is thought created and we can see it every way we want, but people need a job and they need food on the table and they need somewhere to live and they need, sometimes they want education because they haven't had any. So we kind of have expanded what we do to include other things as well. But that's a long-winded way of saying what I do.
No, there's no end. There's no end to, but I want to go back to say, so as I'm listening, there's this one human who had a moment of thinking, yeah, I'd like to do that. I'd like to volunteer. And then there's, everybody in this room who may or may not be looking to how they can get from one place to all the way down the road where you are. And all those, and I spoke to this about, or to you about this before we started, which was, it was one conversation at a time. Because often, like you said, the heckler, I'm in my head going like, oh, what the hell? Let's go to Starbucks. I'll just work there. Like, what do I think I'm doing? Really, what do I think I'm doing? But it's just that one opportunity. And it sounds to me like that's all you're giving. And it's everything that you're giving. Here's the $400. So my question would be, so was this a volunteer position, which it started, as you said, and then when you came to your place of offering it, was that a free course for the inmates? Did that begin as a service for the in the greater good of things, and then it just evolved? And how did that go?
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, I'd worked in England. I had a certain amount of savings that I went through fairly quickly when we came back here because, you know, no one, you know, no one in prison is going to pay you to do anything. Like, you know, they're not going to it just not well it's not going to happen until you become evidence based, which is why, you know, we're actually doing a research project so then we can actually be, you know, be a recognized program of the DOC. But until that happens, we're a volunteer program. So the way that we started to get funding was actually, again, through a conversation. My husband and a good friend of mine went to a fundraiser where this amazing woman called Susan Stoltenberg, who was the executive director of YWCA, was talking, and both of them independently said, you should talk to her, like she's kick-ass, like she's a powerhouse of a woman, and I don't know, I just have a feeling you should talk to her. So I just called her up, and you know, and I've had other conversations too where people don't see this, you know, because you can see something when you talk to someone about the principles and they just get it. And then there's some people that just like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And then you just don't hear from them again, like whatever, it doesn't matter. And I think that was one thing, is like, I just didn't give a shit, you know, if someone doesn't know what I'm talking about, because I know someone will. And Susan Stoltenberg really, really heard something. And so she actually got us in to have a conversation with the women's prison, because they were already doing the kids and children and mother and child program at the women's prison, getting kids who have incarcerated mothers in to see their kids. And so we started working. We got in just to have a conversation, and then when we were in that one conversation, it was the head of the psychology department or counselling at the women's prison. And he said, you need to do a research project because this looks really hopeful, and I think it'd be great if you did a research project. And so we left, and we were outside the prison. I was like, well, shit, if we're going to do a research project, I can't just be Anna Debenham's research project. That just sounds so lame. You know, we actually have to be an organization.
And are you even a researcher? Like, what about that? Did that land and say, just a minute here? Like,
or no, I'm God, I know, I'm absolutely not a researcher. So we connected with, so what happened after that was that Susan Stoltenberg said, well, we'll fiscally sponsor you. So the idea, you know, you were saying, what's a 501c3? You know, it's like, we didn't want to go to that. I didn't want to start a nonprofit initially, because I'd heard from everybody else that, you know, running your own nonprofit is fucking hard work, right? Because you've got to do everything. And I was like, I don't need to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that, because I listened to what other people thought until I had that my own realization or insight. Why am I taking what everyone else thinks is real? Like, it doesn't mean just because they had a hard, you know, experience running a nonprofit that it means I'm going to. That's just nonsense. Like, it's like saying I'm not going to eat sushi because someone else doesn't like raw fish. It's like, just do it, and then you'll see you like it or not, you know. So we ended up being fiscally sponsored by Susan and their organization just as an interim. So it literally is like a one-page thing where they run our books, and then we can start going for grants. And so then I could start investigating what kind of grants could we get for running programs in prison, and we'll do it through them. So we didn't need to set up our own organization or anything first. We were just under the YWCA as a program of the YWCA. And then so we then started to get grants. And then at the same time, we got connected with a woman called Dr. Sarah Bowen, who worked in the psychology department at Pacific University. And she got really interested, and she'd done a lot of research before on recovery and mindfulness. And so she got really intrigued by this understanding. And so she was like, yeah, let's do it. So we had 2 PhD students who were really interested in doing it, which is what we're still trying to finish, because we had 1.5 years of COVID, and we would have finished by now. And it's just like banging your head against the wall trying to get this shit done, and trying to get back into prison to get our the last round done, because we're doing control groups and we're doing longevity. So we're following people 3 months and 6 months and 9 months down the road to see, it's not just after the program that this worked. It's like, how are they doing 9 months down the road? How is their state of mind? How are they dealing with life? How is their psychological flexibility? All that stuff, like way down the line. So you have to keep following up with people, which isn't easy when people parole out to fucking somewhere that you know, you're like, where are they living? You got to go find them, or they move prisons, and then they're like, where are they? So it's like a full-time job in itself. But no, I definitely wasn't a researcher. But you learn this stuff and you realize the importance of doing it, because it's going to be helpful when other people want to do programs. Like if you wanted to go into prison in Vancouver and you go, look, there's a research study here that shows that this has been helpful and it's evidence-based. So it's going to be helpful for other people who want to take this into whatever they're doing. To the more research we can get this independent in an independent university that's not been done before, and with these people, and then go from there. So then I learned pretty quickly about research and collecting data. But to be fair, I had actually done a bit of research data collecting with Jacqueline in England, so I knew that it was a pain in the ass, but I also knew that we had to do it. So that was where that started. So then we were actually we were fiscally sponsored by Susan for I don't know how long actually, by the YWCA, until we started to realize. I then connected with a great woman called Robin Tenenbaum, who had experience in running a nonprofit. She had done for 15 years. She started something called Livewire here in Portland, and she was just finishing that, or kind of moving away from that and wanted to do this. So then I had some more know-how in like, how do you even do this? Like, what does this look like? And it was actually Barb. We went out for coffee, and I'd been so adamant that I didn't want to start a nonprofit, and I was going to like make my money doing coaching over here, but I'd work in prison over here, and for free. But I had no energy for this shit, and I had all my energy was here. And so she's like, "Why don't you just start a nonprofit?" And she just kind of put the question to me in a different kind of way than I'd heard it before, and I was like, actually, do you know what? That probably sounds like that actually sounds like a good idea. And it's not hard. People, it's like realizing that I was just buying into someone, other people's stories about, it's just work. It's just like, it's just life, running a nonprofit. It's just, it's only complicated as you make it, it's just, you just do the next thing you have to do. So that's really been my experience of it. It's not been anything that I mean, yes, I work a lot. If you ask my husband, then I work a lot, but it's I love it and it's important and stuff. So
yeah, it is. It doesn't live you unless you let it, right? But it could live you, right? I have lots of questions, but I wonder. Well, let me just ask you this. So there's a place where the principles become alive in that prison, and when you're in the room, and I go to think, okay, so you've really done your work, and all the things that have got you in there, and so finally the legal system and things say, okay, Anna, give it a go, you're in, and now you're faced with a whole bunch of inmates, and they're like, yeah. I mean, I don't know what the experience is. Maybe some would lean in, some are thinking it's just absolute crap, or so what happened? What was that experience like? Like all this efforting and really well spent time, and then you finally get there. How did it feel for you?
It was amazing. I mean, I think that's the easy part. Being in a room with other humans, to me, is the easy part. And it's like, because seriously, and I know this makes it sound simple, but I'm sure most of you see this too, like you've got mind in the room, you've got mind in every human, and it wants to come alive. So it doesn't take much to, in my experience, is just like pointing to it and bringing it to life, and people start seeing it and they're hungry for it. So the people that are in the room, they're not forced to be there. They're now it's lots more people know about it. Counselors recommend people take our program because they see that people who come through our program do better than other things. But people come there because they want to change, and some people have spent a lot of time with themselves in prison, many, many, many years, but they've always been told something that doesn't ring true to them. They've always been told that there's something wrong with them, and so they've believed it. And so when you're sitting in a room and you're starting with that I'm not going to be teaching you anything you don't already know, and that you're not broken, you don't need fixing, and you have everything you need inside of yourself, no matter where you've come from, what you've done, who you are. We're all the same, and what we're pointing to is what's universally true for all humans. It's like people lean in because they've not heard that before. It's like, get out your workbooks, okay, you've got a book about this big that you've got to get through every page. You've got to write down the worst trauma you've ever experienced. You've got to write down all the relationships you've had with your people far back, and people get re-traumatized by that stuff, you know. And and we're like, we don't need to know about your past to help you. You know, we don't need to like uncut. It's not therapy. And if you choose to share something, then, you know, then by all means, you know, it stays in the room, and we're gonna, you know, you can share. But it's not required. It's not required. And so we're just going to point to something that, you know, is going to remind you about who you are and your resilience, and what you've got working for you. And we're going to harness that, because once you understand it, then you can actually, you know, like, you can use it to your own advantage, and how you navigate life, you know. And so people get interested. It's like, you're not having something, they're not telling them something else to do. And so it's easy. Like, to me, it's the easiest. It's like, there was that thing of, how do I share this? How do I share this? But it you know, I mean, that, and we developed a curriculum, a 10-week curriculum, because there's a direction, and there's a layering, and it's like, where do you start? And then what do you move towards? And, you know, we start with our well-being and what that looks like for everybody, you know, because it looks different for everybody. It's sometimes, some people it looks spiritual, some people it looks like resilience, some people it looks like the life force. Whatever it is, you know. So you want to draw that out in everybody, so everyone actually knows what you're talking about, because otherwise it's just a concept. But you want people to feel it for themselves. And so then you start there, and then we go to the power of thought, and what is that? Not personal thought, but just the power of thought. And then the connection between thought and feeling, and then how moods play a part, and then the role of listening and what that does, and then separate realities, and then labels, and then addictions. And we kind of, there's a direction we go in terms of what I've found over these years that have been helpful. But it's no different from, you know, it's just how I found it helpful to do it, because, you know, it's like, you know, I kind of would joke with Jacqueline, because she had, you know, initially she had this kind of feed from one thought, which we don't have on the West Coast. I mean, we didn't have people who are like really, really wanting to get experience. And so we didn't have teachers, we didn't have anyone. And so therefore they're not coming. We're not got 3 principles teachers or anything that, you know, so we needed a background. We needed some sort of background, that backbone, or something that was going to then help people when they learn to share in a different kind of way. So it's been a great journey. I mean, it's been, you know, fascinating to kind of but yeah, that I'm going on now, so I'm going to stop talking.
I don't think anybody's minding your going ons. But we do have a hand up, so let's open it up to the room. Sharon, so great to see you all the way from.
Good to see you.
Ghost.
Hi, I'm so excited that I was able to make it. I thought I had a conflict and I got out of it. Anna and Kelly, it's so great to see you. And I think, you know, like how excited I get about your work from my effusive responses on social media and shares and all. But I had the, you know, opportunity to go into prison with Jacqueline some years ago. And when I left, I said, this was the best day of my life. I just feel that way. And from the early days with Sid talking about being in prisons, and Chip and Jan, it's just always something in me. And I live on this small island. And when you mentioned that because of COVID, there's some online, like, it's looked to me like I have a geographical, you know, obstacle. And I kind of wonder suddenly I wonder if, you know, how systems, first of all, I don't know if it's the same on the West Coast or East Coast, but or different states, but I wonder about the idea of being able to go in and do a few days and then follow up by Zoom or something like that. Like, if I could even look into that.
Oh, going into prison where? In
just like traveling to start the program, you know, and the problem is that I live here. Right. So my imagination is just going from what you shared about, you know, the capacity to potentially, if things have changed in prison due to COVID and there's more capacity to meet with people by Zoom, I'd still want an in-person component. But it just, you know, I sort of wondered about that. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention is that I had decided a month ago, I had this vision for some work, and I was looking into nonprofit and decided, no, too much work. And then just a few days, it came back to me. So it feels like maybe that is about to happen. So I was inspired by what you shared about that too. And I just thank you so much for everything you do. And if you have any thoughts, great.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. Well, no, unfortunately, the technology in prison is rubbish. The Zoom groups that we've been able to do. So there's two different things that we're doing. The Zoom groups that we're doing is with the youth. And because the youth system works very differently, in that you have to have another adult in the room with youth. And so we work through Janus Youth, which is an organization that runs programs within youth prison. So we have kind of staff that work for us. So then they can actually operate the machinery, right? So then they can get groups together and they can bring them to group, and then they can put on the Zoom, and then they're there with them, because we have that when we're in the youth prison anyway. The adult prison, no one will, you don't have that capacity. We don't have although I have a supervisor, they unfortunately don't work for me in they can actually kind of, then they don't have internet, because it's too dangerous to have internet in a prison where they can get phones in, and then you can have all that kind of stuff. So you don't really have that capacity. But what we have done, two different things. We did a whole 10-week series that we actually then took into the women's prison on video. So it was me running a program, having gaps for conversation, doing, Jane Tucker meditation, little things at the beginning, and doing this whole thing. And then two women who've gone through our program, actually one woman and one trans man who've gone through our program, we're going to run it, because they've gone through our program, a few times. And so they ran that. But also now recently, we've just done another program, because we've been being asked for it, because we did a bunch of webinars interviewing people, and then one prison would find out from another prison, because they'd communicate, and then would get a letter from someone going, I hear you've got video webinars up on the why can't we have them? Can we have them? Because they're hungry for different stuff. And so then so now we've actually, by the Oregon State Penitentiary, we're actually creating an 8-week program, which we're adding some of those webinars to create a series, which is then going to go in, and it's going to go up on 2,000 televisions. So then we're actually going to run it differently. So there's a way to run it, but so that's how we've kind of pivoted in terms of what we're doing, and we're actually now soon going to go back in. But in terms of doing Zoom and it's going to be different in different states too. So what's true in Oregon is definitely not going to be true in this Massachusetts. I don't know what the state is. Is it
Massachusetts? Yeah, that's
right.
Okay.
Right.
No
I don't know what that is, and so I think part of it is just looking into like what is that, and then maybe even connecting with another nonprofit that works in the prison system that you can actually be you can see about what that looks like, so you can get some insight into it, because it really is going to look different in different prisons.
Thank you so much. And if I could just follow up, you may have a quick answer to this. Is there any way that we can be helpful to your organization? I imagine donating money, but is there anything, are coaches able to be helpful to volunteer for you in any way?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have a peer mentor program where we train peers who've been through prison and their mentors, and then actually Rita Shuford and George Carver kind of are in the background, kind of supporting our mentors who work with mentees who are more recently out of prison. But like, I've had one of our youth he's an absolute sweetheart. He was actually out of the youth prison, and he said, I need to and he's out in the community, and he asked, do I have anyone that I know that could work with him and his ex to deal with the trauma that they went through, and they can't afford therapy, and I don't actually think therapy would necessarily be helpful, but I think some more so like working with individuals that reach out to us and go, they come through a program and but then they want more stuff, which then we don't have the capacity for. So we've always got, and then people also want a coach to help them on a project they're doing, or they're wanting to get work to get going. So there's those kind of things that if you were open to going, hey, I've got this guy, who would love, to have a conversation with him and his girlfriend about, dealing with the stuff that they've gone through. And he's a young African-American guy who was in on gang charges, but he's such a sweetheart. And, you know, and so then, you know, yeah, so that's great. That's perfect. This happened because I was actually having to get back to him today. He's like, and I'm like, who and that's the kind of thing we need, is like, who can I, you know, like who has the capacity to do that? And I asked if it needed to be a person of color, and he said no. So that's, you know, sometimes it makes a difference, you know, when
for sure.
but he was cool. So I'll connect with you outside of this to
thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure others know that you could use that support as well.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for that. Yeah, that's great, because I'm sure, you know, you're one organization, one umbrella, but I mean, I don't know what the legacy looks like, but it can go all the way to Massachusetts and come all the way up to Canada, and it can be, you know, inside alliance, borderless, or whatever you want to call it.
That was why there was the intention why it was called an alliance. Because,
yes.
I'm definitely not needing, you know, I'm not the executive director. I have no interest in running things. I just want to do the work. So we want to kind of bring in other people and organize, you know, that actually, you know, to be able to kind of, you know, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, because, you know, the more we can help people, the better. So
yeah,
you know, that's been but that was my initial, you know, impetus at the beginning for calling us an alliance. So we have people that we work with for sure.
Well, it sounds like you're getting more. So I'm going to go turn over to Tom. Hi, Tom. Great to see you.
Yeah,
Hey, Tom. Hi,
hi, Anna. Good to see you. This is kind of like maybe connected to the last question, but I gathered one of the things that you're doing when people go through the program in prison, then they come out in the community, some of those people are becoming teachers and coaches in their own right. And I was wondering if that's very exciting to me. Can you speak on that? Something about like the evolution of that and the direction you might be going in with that?
Well, so, you know, when you're running programs in prison, there's a lot of people go, oh, I want to be part of this when I get out. This has changed my life. This is amazing. And then, you know, life happens and they don't want to look in the rearview mirror, prison's behind them, and then you never hear from them again, you know. And so the majority of people who you get excited about going, oh yeah, they're going to work with us and that's going to be so cool, you know, they want to get on with their lives. It's the first time you kind of let them out of the gate and they're like ready to go. And so it's like they want to get on. But there's a few people that stick around. There's a few people who really want to help other people. Like if other people can get this, then, you know, and that's where their heart is. It's like, you know, why any of us want to do this work. There's a lot of people that just go and do jobs, and then there's some people that really want to make a difference. For whatever reason, it's not, you know, good or bad, it just is. And so then we have those people that then connect with us, and then we, you know, at the moment they're peer mentors and they're training to be teachers. So then if I'm running a program, and then they'll be, you know, initially my assistant, and what the idea is that then they can start running programs for them, you know, with and someone else who's coming up. And that's something that I run with Barb Patterson, because she's on our board and she's really good at working with, you know, coaches who train coaches and that kind of, and that's not, I'm new at, I guess I'm not so new at it anymore, but I feel like it's not, you know, so she's been helping with that. So really it's just kind of people that have a real passion to stay connected, and they've had big insights themselves, and so they can speak to that in a way that's inspiring, you know, initially, that they've seen that this is what we need, this is what's helpful, and then they're getting then so then we start to train them, and then they come through our, you know, peer mentor training, but also then start to do our teacher training.
Nice that's really exciting.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. It's good to see you.
Hello, Mark.
Hi, Kelly. Hi, Anna.
Hey, how's it going?
So nice to see you both. I immediately thought of two resources, one being the Beyond Recovery sharing that's going on with Derek and Omar Wilson and Mama J and those guys. And of course, your prison people can, when they can, access their webinars that they do. And the other one that might help greatly is the heartfelt presence thing. I don't know if you've been in touch with Ryan Brack and heartfelt presence, but there's, you know, it's all over the place as far as the quality of, or the understanding, of course, because that's just the nature of all of us. You know, it's
right.
it's deeper sometimes and not so deep other times, and in the best of us, But I just thought that rather than reinvent one-on-one peer counseling, well, that's probably the best, but that there is this resource of heartfelt presence, that website that anyone can 24 hours go into.
And we have actually gone to it. I have actually looked into it for sure. And we don't have such a stream of people who need extra, but that's actually, I appreciate you mentioning that to me again, because it's one of those things that's on it's been on my radar, then it falls off my radar, and so I don't. But that's a good. It's definitely a good resource, and we developed our curriculum with Beyond Recovery and Spark, so we're in close. We have a fairly close relationship with them anyway, and like Derek and Omar have been onto the. We've got a culturally specific youth group in the youth prison, and they've both been on, and that was really fun because they're great. I love those two. So. It's fun to kind of they join us when they can, but I'd love those kind of collaborations to me are priceless.
Yeah,
I appreciate that though, Mark. I really do. I think that the Heartfelt Presence website, and people know is it's a good. It's I know remind myself again about that.
Yeah, I was just there the other day, and I was saying to one of the coaches that was in the room. It's not just for, like being a coach doesn't mean we don't need coaching. And so the coach that was in the room was saying, did you all hear that? Because I came in saying, yeah, I needed a little insight and understanding today. I had some stuff on the mind, and it's there for everybody. That's what's really beautiful too. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Mark. That's awesome. So what about anybody else? I'm just going to go on to gallery view. How about anybody? Does anybody have anything they'd like to say or share or offer to the conversation? With the lovely, yeah, go ahead, Yael. Go ahead. Hi.
Hi, Anna.
Hey,
Hi,
nice to see you.
It's nice to see you. For some reason, evening in the movies changed to come on and listen to you, and it brought me back to the beginning of when I came across this understanding how much I really wanted to get into prisons, and then all this Corona stuff happened, so it's like bubbling up like old feelings inside me. Because I really wanted to spend my life in prison. I so didn't know what to do. I was like, I'm just going to commit a crime.
Right.
And I get into 4 doors, and that's it. My life will be set. I won't have to think anymore. But when you said something about, like, like Kelly said, he said, like, sometimes you need this little insight. And Anna, when you're talking about, creating a business or like this alliance, like this big thing, it's like, wow, how many things do we have that we put, like, that we look at? Like, I've been thinking about this for such a long time, but it's like waking up every day, and those piles of wood are still here, but they've been here for a month, but I'm actually just thinking about them again today. And there was like this little light bulb that went off in my head. It's like we're like these creators in the world, and we have so many ideas, but we're thinking about them again, and they're new. They just look old, but we get a chance to look at them again. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, and it's beautiful to sit with you all here.
Yeah, it's nice. I appreciate you saying that. There was something that was so, helpful when there was just something so helpful when I realized none of it was about me. And I think I'd spent so much time thinking that I had to achieve something, or I was the one that was getting into prisons, and I was creating a business, and I was doing this, and whenever that was really kind of just unhelpful. It's always and I didn't understand what the difference was in that. And I think that understanding that what I do in the world has no reflection on me, then I don't really need to then prove myself or get in the way or do anything. I'm actually then just letting what occurs to me to happen. And so things that before would pile up because my name would be all over it, and Anna needed to attend to all this stuff, and she was the one that's going to have to get on the phone to this superintendent or that person, then it just never happened, because I'd then start thinking about it and going, oh God, but I'm not in really the right frame of mind today, and I need to really be on my game, and God, how am I going to talk about this? That kind of stuff would get in the way. And then but when I had that realization that I could just fire Anna, and she doesn't need to be anywhere in the room, then there was just an ease about it, that it was like, it's just I literally just do what's in front of me, and it doesn't mean anything about me, because it's not up to me, because someone sees something, they're seeing something beyond the words anyway, so it's touching something inside of themselves, and I can't do that. And I think that it was so helpful running programs, and that was the biggest insight I had when I started running programs. I've been been doing groups for a while, but I thought that I had to come with something. But I thought that I'm the one that's going to give people insights. And when I realized that's just not how it works, that I can't give myself an insight, let alone anybody else. Insights just come, right? Insights come from somewhere beyond my own mind. So I can't conjure up an insight. If we could do that, we'd be doing that all the time, because we all want to have insights. But we're not in control of that. So the idea that I was somehow the instigator of insights was just absurd. And so it was like, none of it's up to me. But what I know is insights happen inside human beings, because they experience them, because I've experienced them. So it's not a question of how do you make someone have an insight. It's just a question of creating a space where then they're going to emerge. And so then it takes off the table that need to feel like you've got to do something, or that you're somehow making these people better. It's like, no, that these people are fine. Like, it's got nothing to do with that, and I think that was something that it made life so much easier, whether it was thinking about a program or thinking about stuff that I needed to do. None of it is about me, and therefore it was like, well, if I'm not on the cutting block, if Anna's not on the, if it's not anything to do with me, then who cares? Like, you just show up and you just do the best you can, and if you fuck it up, then you fuck it up, but still you're okay. You're still going to be alive in the morning, and then you try again, and so it just makes life a lot easier. It makes life a lot easier than thinking that somehow that you're the one on the line and you're the one that needs to do all these tasks and do all this stuff, because it's me literally getting out of my own way was the most important thing I ever saw in terms of being able to move forward in my life, because I used to just like have so much thinking about what I was capable of, or how I could have a conversation with this person or that person, or what it needed to look like, and did I need to be eloquent, and what if I wasn't eloquent, and it's just like, oh my God, it's exhausting even thinking about it now.
Mm-hmm. Wow, thank you so much. That was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, that was really good. It hit home for me too. Yeah, it did. It's like when I take myself off the chopping block, it's like that performance, being even as your host. I was saying to Anna, I'm not a host. I don't have any hosting skills. I'm not a host. I just come here and open this room, and whatever happens, happens. And so far it's been going okay. Today, please, lovely to have you, Sharon.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that truly was amazing what you just said, Anna. And I can totally relate how the state I've been feeling today, really, really low. And I just realized tonight that, okay, but I'm trying to do all the work, and I don't have any fun. So because I'm trying too hard, so I think tomorrow I'll do something else.
Right. Yeah. It's not fun. You got too much on it.
Yeah.
You got too much on the outcome, and you got nothing on the outcome. It reminds me, I don't know why I haven't thought of this for a while, but there's an analogy that Michael Neal uses about having playing with the house's money. If you had, like $1 million and you went to play at the tables, and you couldn't lose, like, you know, what would you do? And you're like, well, you play much freer because you can't lose. You know, you're always going to go home with $1 million because, you know, you're not on the chopping block. You know, it's like the game that you're playing becomes a lot freer, because you'll be okay no matter what. Like, you'll figure it out. You know, how you feel about it may go up and down, and that's cool because that's normal. But it's like, you know, when we're not on the line, then the game becomes much more fun, and it becomes less about achieving anything, even about what, you know, what success even looks like. You know, it's like helping one person. It's, you know, it's like, that's enough. Like, if I worked in a coffee shop and had a chat with one human, like, cool, I'm good. You know, and then you just realize that the capacity is more when you're not thinking that it's on you, you know, that you're the one that's going to have to show up every day and do everything. So to me, that was like, it was the most helpful thing that I kind of saw for myself, that I was, you know, I'm always only playing with the house's money, and I can't lose, you know. I can fuck it up and I can do all this other stuff, but I know I'm going to figure it out because you know, I'm 50 some years old and I always have, you know. So it takes a lot of weight and uncomfortable feelings, like you say. It's like you're having a heavy day. It's like, it's not fun. If it's not fun, then, you know, not that everything should be fun, right? You can't have everything be fun, but you want to, you know, you want to enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. But I also have a question for you, because actually this, well, mid of almost a week ago now, that I have felt the inspiration to you know, to make contact with a prison here in Norway. I just moved to another city, and they have a prison here. And I was thinking, maybe I can do some volunteer work there, and to try to be a service. And but I guess I got kind of caught up about what you said about, you know, how you, because we all relate to, you know, the wisdom and the universal force and the life force and all that, the way you were saying it. Do you have some kind of program for guides and coaches that I could take part in?
We do. I mean, well, we've been, so when we've created the curriculum for, you know, and it's like anything, you know, it's like we say it's for prison, but really it's for humans. So it doesn't matter, but we just happen to work in the prison system. And so it's, but whatever, you know, people have got, you don't need to take a training to do it, right? It's helpful. You know, but if someone, you know, and when we first got into the prison, like, I had very, very basic stuff to show them, because you can't just go in there and say, well, you know, what do you want to do? Well, I want to have a conversation. Yeah, what kind of conversation? What the fuck are you doing? You know, you need to come with something. And so I'd come with a 2-page thing, and we had a flyer and whatnot. And then it's been over time that we've really developed the curriculum. So there is, I know that Jacqueline we were thinking about, we're going to do like a 3-day, you know, 3-day sort of training on the curriculum, and like facilitators who want to work in prison. And so we can, you know, and I think that because we haven't got the time for that, and also we're not doing anything to market it or anything. And so but I think Jacqueline actually wants to do a training in England, which we might be a part of, but then that's going to be that. But also, if you wanted to just go and have a conversation with people in Norway, like, I'm happy to share that, you know, like our flyer and what I first did, put together, that actually when I went in was like, just so you get an idea of what we do, because it's like people, it's like, well, so what is it you're doing? You know, it can be challenging. So yeah, no, I'd be happy to share that. So then, because all it is like, it's finding someone, you know, there's what I found of starting as well is like, you can start to see what other organizations work in prison.
Yeah.
So what other non-profits are doing this? Because I went in 2 capacities. One was through the chaplain, this first prison, and another was through another organization called Phoenix Rising. I ended up just randomly doing an intensive with one of their directors, and I came into a prison under their life skills program. So I just took over their life skills, and I ran the same program through their organization. And so just because I wanted just to kind of try and see what was the best way of doing it, because I didn't care. Like, I just wanted to, just find a way to do it. So there's different ways of kind of talking to the people at the institution, but also seeing what other organizations are already in prison and seeing if you align with what they do and offering something that then, you know what I mean? So there's just different ways of kind of just getting your foot in the door and starting that. But I can get your email information from Kelly, and I can send you the stuff that, not the whole curriculum, because it's like, it's too big and I'm not allowed to, but the rest of the stuff that I can, I will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for that, Anna. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I think what you're inspiring here is entrepreneurs and people who are, I have to say, the feeling of just understanding what you've done as a single human, and how far it's gone, and how you've just let, like you said, you took yourself off the plate and you just let mind work in the way it works, and here you are. There's something to be said for that, and it's inspiring for me to hear it, because oftentimes the bureaucracy of details and legalities at times have completely taken me out. It's like, oh God, it's just like, that's too much shit. I don't want to do it. Yet there's this human over there in Portland that's like, yeah, I did it. It's all good. I took my thinking off of it, and one conversation at a time. Look what's going on here.
And I've got myself into serious trouble where they wanted me to send my badge back, and actually at the moment I'm not allowed into any prisons because I pissed someone off really high up in the prison system. So I'm actually, like, as we speak, I've actually got to send my badge back, and I'm in trouble. But also, though, it's like, we'll figure it out. They're messing with the wrong person, but they try and mess with you, like they do, because when things are working, or like I said, security, they don't want you there, because when people stop reacting to their bullshit, they don't have so much power over them anymore. So they don't want you in there. The prison system, wherever you are, is twisted, and so you're dealing with a body that's not a generous, kind-hearted system. It's punitive, just the realistic, and they're looking through a filter. So even when you're coming in, and they were pissed that this woman, I couldn't understand why I wanted to get back so much in the women's prison, because we want to finish the research. We've got PhD students here and we're waiting. They're like, they want to graduate and they want to write their paper. And so I'm like, okay, can we just get this kind of, and then the woman who I'm dealing with, right, high up in the Dome building, which is in Salem, and she's like, why does she want to get back in so quickly? There must be some criminality involved. So then she got security involved. So a couple of weeks ago when we were in prison, I got frog marched out of prison because she got security involved, because she thought there was a reason that I wanted to go back into a different prison. There must be something going on. Right. So you're dealing with these kind of mindsets of like going, oh my God, you literally marched me out of prison because you have an idea that what I'm doing is criminal. And all I'm trying to do is get back into a facility so we can help other humans. Like, you're dealing with mindsets that are so entrenched in criminal thinking that it boggles the mind, so I kind of enjoy that. So I was got caught up with it a bit there, but it's like, okay, so now what are we going to do? How are we going to figure this shit out? Because at the moment, they're trying to keep us out, but it's just a little hiccup that happens when you're working with prisons. The fuckers.
What came to me there is the all made up stories. That place where, what is true, like we were talking about psychology and how psychology it's like archaic. And this wave of understanding is taking over, and it's shifting. And, when the day was said, when the actual D-Day came, that the world was round, this is the way it truly is. It's like psychology is moving that way. And these archaic systems that you're speaking about, where they're making stuff up, they think you have intentional criminal activity going on, or it's all that made up story. They're going to, see some change and shift. And this is where you're actually fronting it for everyone who's going to go behind you. Thank you to those who go before us. Thank you very much, because the fights and the battles that you might be having on our behalf, as in, the kinder mindset behalf, is going to be you know, the shift and change that these organizations are going to see in the next little while. Yeah. And I appreciate what you're doing for that. You know, there may not be as many people as strong as you who could do that.
Honestly, that's not even true. Like, that literally isn't true. Like, that's made up too, because I've got nothing more than anybody. I mean, literally, you should, I mean, the thing is, you're seeing me now doing this stuff when I've, you know, exited the building. But seriously, I had so much thinking, and I was so insecure. I grew up like feeling like I couldn't do anything, and I was so insecure. And I had insecure thinking for so many years about what I was capable of.
Yeah.
And so it literally, there's no more strength that I have inside me. It's almost like in the absence of believing everything I think is really what it is, you know. And so I think that, you know, anyone can do what they put their mind to, and anyone can do, you know, whatever they want. So I don't want to make it seem like you have to be a strong person to be able to do something, you know what I mean? Like, because I wouldn't have seen myself like that before I realized that, oh, I'm just like, seriously, you know, thinking that my insecure feelings mean that I'm incapable of doing something in the world that I want to do, and then and then I start kind of not doing it, or I just carry on not doing it. So I think that there's something to be said about the strength of this understanding, for sure. In understanding the mind, to be able to kind of know that you can do whatever you want, you know, seriously. And when you have a bad day and you feel like throwing in the towel, like I have those days, like I seriously have those days where I'm like, what? Especially a couple of weeks ago, when I'm dealing with these people that that just trying really hard to, you know, just get mad. And I have those days where I'm just like, what am I doing? This is just so hard. And then I get up in the morning, because I know that that's temporary. And then I'm just like, okay, we're on it. Let's do it. You know, so.
I love that you said that, because it is a course correction, because I do and can see people as doing something bigger or greater. I definitely can do that, as I just did. It's a human quality of mine to think, would I be able to do that? Could I withstand that? Criticism, attack, you know, whatever is coming, you know? And yeah, you're damn right, I could. Yeah. And it's just a thinking pattern that would resurrect whatever comes, you know, in that moment, that wisdom moment. Yeah. So in the light of this room, I stand corrected.
Sorry,
I love it. I love it.
I just don't want anyone to think that you have to be,
yeah,
and because you really don't. Like, you seriously don't. Like, I still fumble around in the dark. It just looks like, you know, it's all whatever, but it's just not. It's not. Yeah. I'm just, you know, putting one foot in front of the other.
No, I love it. I love it. Thank you for that. Mika, please go ahead.
Mute. There we go. Hi. This is wonderful, and I love the work. I was kind of thinking along the lines too of I think it was Trina who was asking about, like, is there some way to get information or some kind of format, you know, to work with. Many years ago, I worked with inner city youth. Mainly like 11 to 18-year-olds. And sometimes it was like within a school situation or a children's museum. Sometimes it was in housing projects. I would go in and actually, you know, do different workshops with them. But so the idea, I've, you know, kind of came across the principles maybe 6 months before COVID hit, you know, so I'm fairly new to it. And I've been doing a lot of stuff with Michael Neal, and then now started with the 3 principles, global community, and now here Kind Mind, just sort of getting lots of different exposure. And I do individual coaching where I can sort of organically intertwine the information within the conversation, but in terms of being able to take it with some type of sort of format or that type of thing, I would love to sort of see some kind of outline as to how to start to sort of form that for myself.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and that was really why, you know, when it was like the training that I got at One Thought was very much, you just show up in the room and then you go where the conversation goes, you know, and that works, you know, it works. you know, because you're in the room and you know where you've got that kind of awareness of what's going on, and you can kind of, you know, you speak to what's in the room. And it, like you say, it's helpful to have a framework. And so that when that kind of started to happen naturally, and kind of realize that there is a kind of a way we're moving. So the whole curriculum, like if we've got, and I keep giving my team away the hard copies, but there is a curriculum which we developed, which when Jacqueline, I think, is going to do the first training, and then, you know, it cost that itself is going to cost money to do that whole training and to get the curriculum and to have a license for it, whatever, because we put a hell of a lot of work and time into it. So that's going to, you know, but I'm the worst salesperson in the world, because you don't actually need it, right? Because anyone, you know, who it's like we had. Some people have been through all sorts of different trainings, but if it's something like, you know what, I just work well with a curriculum, this is going to be helpful, I kind of know what I want to share, but I don't really know how to kind of like what, and if you've done that, then great. Well, then I'd suggest, like, you know, I hate saying it, like, you know, paying to come on that training to then get the curriculum, so then you can, you know, do that, right? But there is, but the thing that I've got that's very, very basic is definitely an outline, and it's not actually, you can't look at that now and then look at the curriculum and go there, you can see these two are connected, because where I started was actually, I pulled stuff from, you know, as Eric and Mara, you know, we're working with them as well, and they had some things that were like, oh, I like that, and then we pulled a bit from that, and then I did, you know, kind of, and so it's like a 2-page or 3-pager which we put together, which definitely aren't just my words. It was like, shit, I need to get something together to give to the prison for them to see what it is we're doing. So it's kind of, we got that, and then I've got a flyer which I made, which I'm happy to share. And then, but if there's like, yeah, I really that idea of a curriculum and more robust training, so I just know how to do this whole thing, then that I can, you know, let you know when that's going to be. But I'm all for making it up as I go.
Yeah, no, I'd love to see the flyer and to get the info, you know, as I'm going to probably be doing within the next year, doing a relocation. So, you know, I'm sort of probably in the process of that. But then once I do the move, you know, I'm going to be looking to see how I could bring that in more too.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
thanks,
it is.
Yeah, it is. And just one other thing too, I think sometimes it's like people, you know, wanting to work in prisons, but there's a lot of people affected by the criminal justice system that aren't in prison, that are on probation, that are going through programs, that are, you know, there's different ways. And so if that idea of getting into prison is challenging, because there are like that, it's a process, and you've got to be, you know, but whatever. I mean, anyone can do it, but it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things that hit me, because I have a couple of friends who have gone to prison and are out, have been out for some years now. But I think sometimes too, like, it's when they're coming back out into society as well. There's such a huge transformation that they have to go through, an adjustment and acceptance for whatever's coming at them, for whoever they're trying to deal with, and making their adjustments, that it could be really helpful too.
Totally. And that's why we started doing re-entry services, and why we ended up starting, because people would get in touch and say, Anna, do you have your program on the outside? I really need to take it again. Like this shit all feels real. You know, where it's like, oh yeah, I can see the made up nature of when I was in prison, but this is real. Like I'm dealing with my ex, I'm dealing with my kids, I've got my parole officer up my bum, you know, I've got all this stuff going on. Like I need help. And so, you know, transition back into the community, I'd say, is that the hardest. People don't give enough, you know, put enough emphasis there. It's so challenging to especially when you've been institutionalized, quote unquote, you know, and conditioned into a way of being, and then you get out in the world. I've had people kind of cry to me in a bread aisle in a supermarket because they don't know which bread to pick, because they've never had to make a decision in 15 years, you know, and that's like especially now with everything that's going on. So programs that are actually available for people transitioning, then getting in touch with transition services in the different places, which then it takes away a whole layer of bureaucracy of getting into a prison. So it depends on what you want to do, but the need for people that have been affected by the prison system, the criminal justice system as a whole, is far reaching. It's not just people who are in prison, it's the kids of people who are in prison. It's the spouses and the partners and all the relationships of people that have been in prison. And it's so much bigger than just the people that are in prison, that if that seems like, oh, that I can handle, that I could do, like that seems, there's different ways you can start, or you could start there and then introduce it into, there's all sorts of different ways, that you can go about it. But the people affected by the criminal justice system and then transitioning back to the community is really, is definitely challenging. And like I said, just getting a birth certificate, when you're being told no at every turn and you just want to pull your hair out. Not my thinking this is real.
Yeah. And just one final note on that is like, and what a crucial point, like when that transition time, what a crucial time also to sort of help them, in terms of understanding their thinking and understanding, how where reactions come from, so that they don't end up back in that situation. That's
totally.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Mika. Before I came onto this call, I I was with my family for dinner, and I said, who knows the word recidivism? Now, my dad's from London, and of course I knew he'd know. So we had this whole talk about it with my nieces and my nephews, and that idea that some of us could support people staying out of prison with the skills that we have and whatever, and Mika's speaking to that as well. And whatever skill you have, bring it, because this system needs all of us, by the sounds of things.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's why, the parole officers who observe people that have done our program in prison, and then they're coming out, they're much easier caseload than other people that are coming out that haven't had our prison. They're having to a lot of the guys just get off paper, or the women get off paper sooner, because the parole officer doesn't need to worry about them. They're just doing better, and so the parole officer's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you actually doing? Because there's something different that you're doing. I don't know what it is. Like, can you please explain what it is you're doing? And so there's definitely a difference that they actually notice. They really notice. And so then that's like the meeting we had this morning. They get in touch and they go, hey, can you tell us more about your program? I'd love to send other people to you that are now out of prison, that are struggling being on parole, so.
Do you actually, I know that that the guards witness, the security witnesses, the experiences within the prison as you're flowing through your curriculums. Do you actually have training for them?
I wish.
Yeah. Is it that they won't, is it that they are not open to it, or that they won't, what is it?
We haven't gone there yet.
Yeah.
Well, I've kind of got a card up my sleeve in that regard for when we've got the capacity. A really good friend of mine, ex-wife, is the head of the union that runs the prison officers and the security, and because it's like coming at it from a different direction. Because the people in prison, if you've got a program that's for prisoners, the guards don't think that they need the same program, and so they wouldn't see that that's going to work, that they want to take the same programs. If you're in prison, I'm not going to take the same program as someone that's in prison, and I know that that's something that we've heard before, like, oh, you should take this program, and it's like, why would I take a program that's for prisoners? So I was thinking, when I'm thinking about, like coming at it from another way, where we connect with the union of the prison, of the guard, of the officers, and then offer a program for them that they don't realize is the same program that in prison, then, but we just haven't got the capacity at the moment. It's hard to keep volunteers, on the ground. It's not like we have an abundance of teachers we can just throw at things. And so I don't want to water down what we're doing and to kind of open it up to too much yet. So it's just a question of doing what we're doing, making sure that we're doing it well, knowing that there's this whole other, all the guys in prison are like, the officers really need this. Like, they're really struggling. It's like, yeah, they are.
Yeah. And it's, if it starts at the top, it can only filter down. It's just, yeah.
Absolutely.
And you're what came up for me is the knowing. They're in a knowing of thinking that they don't need it. It's not for them. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Yael, please.
while I'm listening to Mika and like all this conversation, I suddenly I realized that like I got in and out of prison. You know, I was diagnosed with bipolar, and I've been in and out of hospitals, like I guess from my 20s to my 30s, and I realized like it's the same thing. It's like when we don't understand that we create our own prison, we get back into it, and then we go back to the hospital. Yeah, maybe this is called a hospital and this is called a prison. And here, you know, some people are, you know, it's unfortunate that that they get locked up because they don't know. You know, I was like a moment away from making very, very bad decisions that would take me to prison in that state. But I see that like the importance, like I try to figure out what to do with my understanding, because basically I'm healed from, you know, psychosis and bipolar, and it's like, wait, what do I do with it? Because I'm very, very talented. I can do anything. I can sing, I can create. There's so many things I can do, but this is important. And when it's not about me, like you said, when it's not about me, there's this willingness and wanting like to help, to bring hope to people.
Yeah.
So it's just like I realize it's just like the same thing. It's a different kind of prison.
Yeah.
And there's so much to do there.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
Wow. That's a nice realization. But yeah, it's we definitely create prisons in our own minds, whatever we're doing, wherever we are, whatever we keep cycling back into. Sure. And I did it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was bulimic for 25 years, and it's like, you know, that was a prison that was cycling back in, and I didn't know how to get out of it, you know.
I was right there with you. Same thing, bulimia. It's a prison of the mind for sure. Secular, it just goes around and around until we see something different.
I just want to say something about that. For me, it was the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I was eating my thoughts till I got, you know, I don't know, I can't say how big, but like 125 kilos. So some people will eat our thoughts. Sometimes we do something else with it. Totally. It's mind blowing. This.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you realize it's all the same. So when you bring, you know, like that Sid always said, you know, you share what you know. You share, you know, like you sharing that story about your own, you know, sort of journey through psychosis and coming through it, and like that's powerful. Like it's powerful to see that you're not there, you're not in that prison anymore, and it's like you kind of get curious about, you know, how did that look different for you and what changed, you know. So there's so much that's available for you sharing what you know and sharing your own experience with people that are still very much in that prison, whatever prison it is. It doesn't matter, you know. It's like it's really so helpful. It's so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. What a rich and full conversation. So I know, Anna, that many people have requested your brochure, flyer, outline, whatever you're willing to offer up. And I am happy to send that out to everybody, or if you would like me to send some of the emails, I can do that.
That's fine. I can send it to you.
Yeah.
Or you can give I don't mind, however you want to do it too.
Sure. Yeah. Whatever works best. And for those of you in the room, is there anything bubbling up? Anything else that feels like it needs to be voiced or spoken or shared? Mm-hmm.
I'm just so grateful and inspired, and I am sort of curious if anything has shown itself in terms of social justice, the criminal justice system. I mean, that's a whole other world, and maybe it's off topic, but I just didn't know if anything came to the surface in terms of how to be I had mentioned in the comments, like I was wondering if I know there are some for-profit prisons. I imagine the ones you're in are not for profit, but if you had any insight into that, or if that's just a journey for another day, I don't want to pull people too.
Yeah, no, the Oregon prisons are public, which also means that they don't want to give up their jobs. You know, so that there's definitely it seems you know, they're not necessarily, one isn't necessarily worse than the other. They both you know, create, it's amazing. Anyway, the whole system is amazing. But I mean, you know, the only thing that we do, we work closely with OJRC, which is the Oregon Justice Resource Center, and the Innocence Project. So, I mean, we do advocacy work as well for bills that are getting passed, that, you know, like Measure 11, which stops kids being tried as adults. And, you know, it's like, again, when you do this work and you realize there's other things that are needed, you know, there is, you know, so, you know, us being, you know, like advocacy and helping with clemency and writing letters to the Senate. We've got good relationships with our senators and with the governor. You know, so it's like forming those relationships to kind of advocate for people that are trying to get out for whatever reasons. And I mean, you know, sometimes you just kind of think, oh, we're not doing enough because there's a whole system in place which is you know, steeped in systemic racism, and it's just, the whole thing is so unfair. And when I start getting my head into that piece of it, it can drive me nuts. But then it also like paralyzes me to actually do what I can do. So it's like I need to stay in my life and do what I can do, and not kind of, otherwise I can get swept up into what I'm not doing rather than what I am doing. And it's like both is needed, you know. And I think that it is one person at a time, because people too have to sort of see that, have a change in mindset, and to see something different for them to actually then stay out of prison, no matter what got them there in the first place, you know. And so you know, the more advocacy we can do and work alongside, you know, kind of organizations and lawyers that are actually doing the work to help people in, you know, who are innocent, and help people that have, you know, all the stuff that happens is important too. So we have we've started a committee with our team, our board members, and who wants to get involved with the kind of the advocacy committee of what we advocate for, and what we push for, and what we kind of talk to our senators about, and what we want to see change happen, and all those kind of things. So it's all important, the whole thing. And there's always more to do, but as long as I'm kind of staying in my lane and realizing that, you know, this stuff just is gonna, I'm not going to become a lawyer. I'm just not going to do it. It's just not my thing. In this life, I'm a criminal lawyer and hate everyone. Right, but you know, there's brilliant people that do it, and so we want to partner.
Thank you. That was a beautiful. Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of partnerships again. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I have to run, but I'm so grateful to you all, to everyone on the call. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Does the lawyer want to speak up in the room? We have a lawyer in the room. She says no. She's in mediation rather than in criminal law. But well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and Anna, especially to you, for shedding such a beautiful light on the largest umbrella that I really didn't know had such a vast opening for support and help. And so it was great for me to actually hear the entire conversation as it unfolded, because we never know where it's going to go. We just never know.
Well, we have an amazing team. So our executive director is incredible, and our board is amazing too. So it's definitely was seeded by me, but it takes a team. So
how many is on your? How many?
Well, we've got so Lindsay, who's our executive director, who was just I mean, amazing to find, because she has 20 years experience of running nonprofits and you know, and all that stuff, and so she's just brilliant, and she knows how to grow a nonprofit. So, and I don't have that experience. And then Mason, who we hired recently, we met in prison, and he's now kind of teacher and assistant and stuff like that. And then we have a board of 10 people. And then we have our peer mentors, and we have peer mentors, we have 7, and teachers who are in training, we have sort of 5 or 6, and then we have a 10 person board. A really passionate, very diverse group of people. So it's you know, I feel it's nice to have I like working with people. So it's nice to be just one member of a team.
Yeah. Well, I can tell just based on the fact that you came here out of a labor of love to share and work this conversation. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you inviting me and seeing everybody here, and
Yeah.
some familiar faces and some new faces. So thanks for hanging out.
Yeah. If everybody wants to unmute and say their goodbyes, please do